problem is we are bounded to our own view of something. So when a patient is thinking about treatment, unfortunately, they may make a choice that keeps them from being treated, even though it would be better for them to move forward. Welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your private medical practice systems into vitals, give you the tools to diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and prescribe what to do about it. I'm your host, Zed Williamson, and I believe that every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. The freedom that exists in that is that if you're not excited about the outcome, if you're frustrated, it's cool. Because all you got to do is tweak the system, and then you can get the outcome you want. And I'm going to assume if you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing that you're feeling constraint within your medical practice. There are obstacles in the way of achieving your goals. This can look or feel like burnout. Maybe you've hit a plateau in your business. Maybe you're frustrated with some employee or in-office drama. A lot of things. If you're done, meaning you are ready to make a change and start hitting the goals that matter to you, then go to the physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and check your vitals using our free diagnostic. What we're using here is system thinking or constraint theory. And I want you to think about an interstate, a freeway, just a multi-lane road that's going through your town. And I want you to think about where is the point that traffic always builds. It's when that one lane goes away. Now, it's not a surprise, and traffic doesn't always stop, right? It depends how many cars there are. Are there other variables? Is there an accident? Is there different types of weather? Well, when you look at highway traffic flow, all those variables impact the constraint and how big that constraint is on the ability for cars to move forward. When cities are first built, it seems like they don't have a lot of forward thinking, and they build these roads too small, and traffic builds up to the point where they need to widen them. That's constraint theory. And this applies to business, and it applies absolutely to your medical practice. And so we've worked with well over 500 medical practices over the last 13 years, and we've identified 9 specific points of constraint or obstacles that are in the way of you achieving your goals. It's the things that cause the feeling of that my business has hit a plateau, or I'm just frustrated. I feel like I'm busy, but we're not any more profitable. Or you're really impacted when there's a change to insurance reimbursements. All of that is some form of constraint. And so if you go do the diagnostic, it's going to help you identify where some of those constraints are. And I'm going to talk about one today that's in a stage that we call the capture stage. The capture stage is from the standpoint of when a patient says, gosh, you know what, I have a problem, I'm going to try to connect with somebody, all the way to whether or not they choose to get treatment from you. And there's 3 vitals within this stage, and the one I'm going to talk about today is called the bias vital. So this happens after someone is called or sent in a web form, they've booked an appointment. So there is an appointment on the books, but they don't show up, or they cancel, or they consistently reschedule. What happened here? Well, the human brain is pretty interesting. It's designed to survive in a world that doesn't exist today, and it uses something called bias or heuristics, these automatic decision machines that exist. And they generally exist for us to feel comfortable. The problem is we are bounded to our own view of something. So when a patient is thinking about treatment, unfortunately, they may make a choice that keeps them from being treated, even though it would be better for them to move forward. Well, this happens at every point in their interaction with a patient. On top of that, patients are typically in pain, under stress, maybe they're not in a healthy state. So bias and heuristics drive their behavior more than someone who's in a really good state, really good health, no pain. Makes sense, right? So what do we do about it? Well, the bias vital is really important because all of this work has been done to get a patient to trust your practice. They've reached out to you. They've talked to someone. And now it's that gap in time between them doing that and the appointment. So what are some factors here? Number one is time. If this is an ideal patient, meaning this is somebody who truly fits your practice perfectly from the standpoint of what they're dealing with, what the likely treatment would be, the benefit to your practice from a time, profitability, and patient outcome, if they are that ideal patient and you're booking those appointments 3 weeks or farther into the future, you're almost guaranteeing a no-show rate. Through thousands and thousands of appointments, we found that once the appointment goes past 5 business days, the no-show rate goes up 60%. That's a big jump. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, but Zed, my schedule is booked out. I can't see those patients earlier. That might be true. But what I would suggest is do the research into your data of your appointments and see, are there scheduling rules that we could create where your staff knows this is an ideal patient, this patient, we do everything we can to get them in within 5 business days. And if not, we raise our hand because we know it's that important. That's just one thought. Now, if the appointment is set up and you're witnessing a lot of no-shows, this could be because the patient is now going and doing some research. Maybe they're visiting your website. Maybe they're learning about treatment options that are scaring them. A simple video to you looks interesting. Like, oh, look at that small incision, and that's interesting. Oh, I like that approach. I find them. Well, the patient is going, holy moly, they ain't touching me with that. I mean, just say needle to most patients, and you see them wince. It's silly, right? But it's the brain we're dealing with. So we have to take that into account. So are your phone calls set up to help patients get over the biases that are going to try to keep them from moving forward? Here's some tips around that. If you ask a patient to fill out a lot of online effort-filled work before their appointment, you're going to cause a high no-show rate. This might seem silly. You may not like it. That's okay. It is the way it is. Here's why. Because a patient gets this link, it's with an EHR that's probably not built that great for, user experience. And so someone logs in and they get sidetracked and they don't do it. And then the time for the appointment comes and they think to themselves, you know what? I didn't do the online thing they asked me to do. They're probably not expecting me to show up. Once they say that, they can find any reason not to go to the appointment. So if you want someone to fill those things out, that's fine. I'm not saying don't ask, but just let them know very simply. You can script it for all your staff. Hey, we're going to send you a link. It's great if you fill it out in advance. If not, no worries. No matter what, we will see you Tuesday, April, blah, blah, blah. You have to set that very specifically. The other thing that may cause no-shows is we don't really set the commitment for the patient, meaning we ask them, what day is good for you? Oh, okay, well, we can make that work or whatever it is. And now the patient goes, well, gosh, you know what? This thing popped up. I don't think they were really expecting me anyway, so I'm not going to go to my appointment. So here's a very specific tip that helps with that. At the end of the call, when you're booking the appointment, you simply have your staff say, hey, Margaret, you're not expecting any surprises to pop up that would make you miss this appointment, would you? And they'll go, no. And now we're using commitment bias on our behalf so that when something does pop up to the patient, they think to themselves, oh, you know what? I told them nothing would surprise me, so I got to go to the appointment. Now, there's another tactic that sometimes you hear about, and that's charging people. Get a credit card and charge a non-refundable fee if they don't show up. So here's my opinion about that. Just measure it. The reason is if you have an opinion about someone no-showing, and that's the driver of asking for payment, it may not be the best idea. Here's why. Would you rather a practice with 100 booked appointments with a 20% no-show rate or 60 booked appointments and 100% show rate? However you answer that question is going to tell you if you should charge or not, most likely, because it's going to reduce the number of appointments and increase the percent that show up. And it's the balance between what is the actual input into your practice. In that model, and obviously I made it up, but is 20 less appointments okay? Do you like the predictability of everybody showing up. Is that important enough to you? If it is, great. If you're saying, gosh, we're just not seeing enough of the patients that I want to see, and you're charging a non-refundable no-show fee, maybe look into that. And also the practice matters. If you're cash-based and this is something where you find that a lot of people waste your time, absolutely charge. If it's not, just think about the data. Look at the numbers and make sure you're making a choice based on throughput. So when you think about constraint theory, it's all about throughput. It's about how much can we get through the system, not necessarily how much can we restrict flow. If patients are rescheduling over and over and over again, they're likely scared about something. They're in enough discomfort where they don't actually full-on no-show or full-on cancel, but something is keeping them from coming in. So if you have that habitual rescheduler, instruct your staff to just go, hey, you've scheduled a couple appointments. Is everything okay? Is there anything you're concerned about? Something that's keeping you out of the office? I mean, what patient gets asked that by any practice? Not many. And they're going to go, oh, wow, this place actually cares about me. And they may actually tell you at that point, no, I'm good, and then they'll show up. The simple fact that you asked because you care is going to help them through whatever fears they potentially have. Some of them are going to talk about a fear, and most of the time, it's not real. So the key is, let's not be angry at patients for not showing up for their appointment. Let's not be angry at cancellations and reschedules and all that stuff. The system is creating that outcome. That's the beauty of this idea that every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. So there is something happening between them booking the call and their appointment that's creating that outcome. So all we have to do is dig in, find out what to tweak it, and the outcome will improve. And I want you to think about just overall for your practice, what is your dream for your practice? 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now, what would you really love to witness on a day-to-day basis? Does it have to do with profitability? Does it have to do with patient flow, maybe stress level? Do you feel like this bias is an obstacle potentially to you achieving those goals? The Physician Growth Accelerator, we know where to look, and we know how to remove the constraints that are hindering that growth. Go to physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and request a business assessment review. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Physician Growth Accelerator.